No, it was a presidential election in 1960, and what was happening was you had uh, uh, oh gosh, the President Nixon. You had Vice President Nixon, who was going up against John F. Kennedy. The election was close. King and the folks there were traveling through the South, dealing with these sit-ins, and wicked policemen would pull them out. They would see civil rights leaders come to their city, and they would pull them over for anything. They knew if they knew King was coming, they would pull him over. They give him a ticket. Well, he had so many of these tickets, he just ignored them. King just ignored those tickets, right? Well, he shows back up in Atlanta of all places, and is doing a sit-in. As soon as he leaves the sit-in, the police capture him and say, "Oh, you got a ticket that hadn't been paid. We're gonna throw you in jail." Well, in Atlanta at the time, this was chain gang territory. He was gonna do some hard time here. And his wife, Coretta, who was 6 months pregnant, she didn't know what to do. Well, she knew that they had curried favor on the Republican side of the ticket. So they had someone reach out to Vice President Nixon, and Nixon was trying to run for the presidency. This was a close election, and Nixon was like, "Look, y'all are stirring up too much trouble. I do not have time right now to deal with this." Well, someone placed a call to Kennedy, and Kennedy said, "Hey, listen, I've got a brother, Robert, who understands what's going on with the police department down there. He's going to make a call." And and he talked to Coretta. He talked to Coretta and told Coretta, "Listen, I'm going to take care of it. You don't worry about it. We'll get it taken care of." So Robert Kennedy makes a call, gets King out of jail. King shows up at home with Coretta. Now, King Sr. had a massive following in the Black community. He had been a pastor for a very long time, and he had never advocated or went out and said, "I endorse this particular person." Now, what he had done in this election cycle was he was actually against Kennedy, and the reason was because Kennedy was Catholic. He didn't want a Catholic in there. It was a big bugaboo about him being Catholic, that he really wasn't Christian, and what's he going to do when he gets in there? Well, once Kennedy's responsible for letting his son out of jail, King Sr. gets on as soon as he can run to a pulpit and a microphone and some cameras, and says, "I have to give credit where credit is due. It was John F. Kennedy." And now this is October, going into a November election, right? He tells everybody, "Look, it was Kennedy who helped us out. Kennedy is the man. I appreciate him." And then King does the exact same thing. Now, this election is tight. It's really tight. However, because of those two endorsements in the Black community, where they got on television and pushed that narrative that Kennedy was the man, Kennedy received 70% of the Black vote. 70%. When Blacks had previously voted Republican.
Right. Historically.
He gets 70% of the Black vote, and it is the margin by which he wins, like a 3%. You go back and look at the numbers. It's like 3% of the victory he wins, and then wins the presidency. And so once he wins the presidency and all the Blacks follow him, they feel like they were the ones who elected a president. So Kennedy was their president. Kennedy was the first, in their minds, was the first Black president, right? So then what happens? Kennedy gets shot, and Black folk felt like we were the ones who got shot. Yes.
Right.
And from that point on, from the point at which we have forever stayed on the Democratic plantation, forever. Now, there was a time period in the late 30s where this happened as well with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but it was 30, and then we went right back to the Republican Party. And during the Depression, we went right back to the Republican Party, and then it was again in 60. And from the 60s, we have stayed on the Democratic plantation ever since. Voting upwards of 80 to 90% of us voting for the Democratic platform.